They say brilliance shines, but what if it's mopping floors at 6 a.m.? It was a Monday morning in downtown Seattle, the kind that didn't just start, it launched. Outside, the city stretched in steel and speed. Inside Morrison Langley, Group's towering headquarters, everything clicked with purpose. Polished shoes, brisk emails, the hiss of espresso machines competing with the buzz of fluorescent ambition. On the surface, it was business as usual. But 4 floors beneath that gleaming lobby, far from the boardrooms and billion-dollar deals, in a janitor's break room with flickering lights and a vending machine older than most interns, something extraordinary was happening. Not loudly, not for show, just a quiet brilliance unfolding like breath in cold air. Clarice Benton sat alone, back straight, uniform shirt folded neatly beside her. No scrolling phone, no idle chatter, just a dog-eared copy of advanced German grammar for interpreters, pages bleeding with highlights, sticky notes peeking like tiny flags of war. Her lips moved silently, not reading but recalling, studying, training, surviving. This was her sanctuary, the quiet space between shifts where her real life refused to give up. "I came here to prove something," she whispered to no one. A sentence half muttered, half mantra, a reminder. She didn't say what, but the where in her voice made it clear. It wasn't just about languages. It was about worth. A knock on the door broke her rhythm. "Clarice," called a familiar voice. "Morning crowd's coming in. Might want to clear the lobby." "I'll be gone before they even know I was here," she replied, closing her book with precision, placing a sticky note between a clause, on verb inversion. She pulled on her gray work shirt like armor, adjusted her ponytail, and stepped into the hallway just as the underground garage doors slid open. A man in a charcoal coat stepped out. Alexander Reeve, the new CEO. He didn't stride in like he owned the place. He moved like someone still deciding if it was worth owning. What happened next took less than 60 seconds, but it would ripple through the entire company for months. As he walked toward the lobby, Alexander froze, not because of an alarm, not because of chaos, but because of a voice, clear, precise, confident. A woman in a janitor's uniform was giving directions to an elderly man, in Mandarin. "Yes, sir. The elevator you need is just to the left. You're heading to the 18th floor, correct? It's clearly marked. If you get lost again, I'll be here." Alexander turned his head. She smiled softly at the man, then turned, seamlessly, to a delivery worker holding a clipboard. This time, in fluent Spanish, she redirected him to the IT department. Seconds later, she addressed a vendor with mismarked inventory in fluid French. 3 strangers, 3 languages, 1 janitor. She wasn't showing off, she wasn't even trying. But to Alexander, it felt like watching a piano played blindfolded in a burning room. Grace, control, clarity. In a uniform that reeked of bleach. He crossed the lobby, barely aware of the buzzing phones and the smell of morning coffee. His world had slowed. She had stopped it. He didn't shout, just one word. "Excuse me," she turned, calm, guarded. "Yes, sir?" "You were speaking Mandarin just now." "Yes, sir," and Spanish, French. She nodded. Also Portuguese, Arabic, Italian, Swahili, Russian, a few others. But mostly I help people get where they need to go. No brag, no smile. Just facts, like reading the weather. He blinked. "What's your name?" "Clarice Benton." "Miss Benton, are you free for a few minutes?" Silence hung. Not fear. Something deeper. The kind of silence that comes from years of knowing what attention usually brings when you're invisible. Then she nodded. "All right." That moment didn't just shift a day. It shifted everything. "I have to ask," Alexander said as the glass doors slid shut behind them. "How does someone like you end up here?" Clarice's eyes shifted to the window of his corner office. Her posture was still, but the pause she took felt years long. "Do you have time for the truth?" "I wouldn't have asked otherwise. She took a breath, palms rubbing gently as if warming to the moment. Her voice didn't tremble. It didn't dramatize. It simply carried weight. I was born outside Columbus, just a small town, small house, just me and my parents. My dad fixed pipes. My mom changed beds in a hospital. They didn't have much, but they had pride. They believed in books like some folks believe in prayer. Clarice spoke with reverence, not pity. I got a scholarship to Ohio State, linguistics. I was the girl in the front row who always raised her hand. I had dreams of joining the UN, traveling the world, becoming something. She glanced down for a beat. After graduation, I had job offers, plans. But then my mother got sick. Cancer. My dad had a stroke not long after. I came back home, told myself it was temporary. Just a year, maybe. But life doesn't do pause. It does fast forward. Her eyes blinked slowly, but her voice didn't crack. I had a daughter. Her father left. The bills came, and I took the first job that let me be there when she got out of school, and still pay to keep the lights on. Clarice smiled faintly. That job was cleaning night shifts, and somehow, 13 years passed. She looked back at him. But I never stopped learning. I borrowed library books, read newspapers in 5 languages, watched international news with subtitles, practiced pronunciation in laundry rooms. I studied in silence. And for a moment, that silence took over the room. Not awkward, just full. The kind of silence that says everything. Later that day, Clarice was back on the service level. She picked up her gloves like nothing had happened, because that's how it always was. Moments didn't linger. Not for people like her. A clipboard brushed past her shoulder. Clarice, you left the mop sink running again. I didn't use it today. Well, someone did, and you're the only one on shift. She didn't argue. She just nodded, checked the sink. It was dry. She closed the door without a word. That afternoon, while cleaning near the second-floor conference room, a man in khakis and status spilled coffee. He looked down at the mess, then kept walking. No sorry. No glance. Another employee waved vaguely. Hey, can you get that? Thanks. No one said please. Clarice crouched down, quietly cleaning the spill when a voice cut through. Clarice, when you're done there, Holly needs a wipe down, and don't block the hallway again. Someone almost tripped. That wasn't me. I'm not blaming. I'm directing. That's my job. Janet walked off. No pause. No breath. Clarice stood slowly. Not angry. Not surprised. Just used to it. Later that week, she passed the open door of logistics. Inside, a man in a crisp suit was red-faced, waving a contract. Who translated, "This? It's wrong. The format's backwards, honorifics are mismatched. We could have lost the Kyoto vendor over this." Clarice paused, stepped just close enough to speak. If you mean the Japanese clause on page 6, it's not a translation. It's a literal conversion. The phrase implies desperation. You might try, "We appreciate your timely consideration" instead. The room went silent. Toby Chin looked up, blinked. Noted. You can go. She did. Quietly, a week later she passed the same office. Laughter, celebration. Nice save on the Japan deal, Toby. He didn't correct them. Of course he didn't. That night in the break room, Clarice stared at a pinned notice. Due to limited slots, the internal language program is reserved for corporate staff only. Support personnel not eligible. She had applied, wrote an essay, asked politely. Never got a reply. Clarice folded the paper, slipped it between Japanese verb charts and Arabic conjugations in her notebook. Not to keep. Just to remember. It wasn't the first time she fixed something no one knew she touched. Months earlier, she caught a German translation error in a contract. Payment terms could be read as 60 days instead of 15. She flagged it. No name. Just a sticky note. Clause 4 syntax could imply 60 days. Recheck wording. The mistake was corrected. The legal head got a bonus. Clarice? Another night on mop duty. Invisible hands. That's what we are, she once told herself, walking home in the rain. No umbrella, no coat, just tired feet and a voice that refused to go quiet. 2 years ago, she almost quit. Her birthday dinner, late from a triple shift, her daughter across the table, eyes tired too. I think I'm done, baby. I can't keep doing this. Her daughter took her hand, didn't speak. Just squeezed tight. She didn't quit. Because she wasn't just surviving for herself anymore. She remembered another moment. 5 years back. Corporate networking event. In the lobby. Clarice had been told to stay out of sight. But an exec dropped a plate. She helped without thinking. He looked her over and sneered. You people always think knowing a few fancy words makes you equal. You're not here to speak. You're here to clean. She never reported it. What would have happened? She knew the answer. Back in the present, Clarice rolled her cart past a group of interns. None of them looked up. Then, he saw it. Alexander Reeve, from the end of the hallway. He saw her. Saw the way the interns moved past like she wasn't there. Saw the janitor who spoke 3 languages that morning treated like air. Interesting, he murmured. And in that moment, something in his posture shifted. The next morning, Clarice was wiping the lobby floor. Headphones in. Mop steady. Mind elsewhere. On laundry, groceries, the library stop before shift change. A light tap on her shoulder. She turned. Blinked. Alexander. Mind if I bother you again? You came down here? Couldn't stop thinking about our talk. Listen. Sao Paulo delegation came early. Translator canceled last minute. He paused. I need help. Portuguese? She asked. Yes. Clarice didn't ask who'd be in the room. Didn't fix her hair. Didn't change. She just followed him. The elevator ride was fast, quiet. But the conference room was loud. 4 Brazilian execs, furrowed brows, phones in hand, misalignment, mistrust. Clarice walked in, didn't speak yet, just nodded. Then, in perfect Portuguese. Good morning, gentlemen. Mr. Reeve sends his apologies. Plans changed, but we're grateful you're here. The tension melted, phones lowered, brows relaxed. She continued. He's reviewed your proposal carefully. There are a few points he'd like to clarify before we proceed, if you're open to it. One of the execs smiled. She speaks it better than our last 3 interpreters. Clarice translated, explained, even added cultural nuance to a misfired joke, then followed with one of her own. The room chuckled. She didn't grin. She didn't beam. She just translated, but Alexander whispered, she's not interpreting. She's bridging. 20 minutes passed. Clarice stacked the coffee cups as the meeting ended. One Brazilian exec paused. She's the best we've worked with this year. Where'd you find her? Alexander glanced at Clarice, still in her gray uniform. Right here, in the hallway. As they left, they didn't talk. The carpet absorbed their footsteps. But something, unspoken, passed between them. You ever done this professionally? He asked. No, she said. Just helped people. Hospitals, airports, government offices. Certifications. Didn't have time. My daughter needed me more. He nodded. And where is she now? 26 RN in Tempe, paid her own way, stubborn like her mama. They both smiled. Clarice glanced down. I didn't do anything special today. That's not how it looked to me. He scribbled something in his notebook. Underlined it. Twice. Clarice tilted her head. What are you writing? He didn't say, but the idea in his head was already forming. And it wasn't small. Clarice? She just went back to mopping, because that's what brilliance looks like when no one is watching, when the world isn't ready to see it until it needs it. 2 days after the São Paulo delegation, the call came again. Alexander's voice was calm but direct. I need your help. Again. A North African delegation had arrived earlier than expected. 4 Moroccan executives, high stakes, tense, Misaligned communication, legal holdups, and a cultural misunderstanding that nearly derailed the entire deal. The translator assigned to the meeting was new, nervous, flipping through notes, fumbling. Alexander walked into conference room 8A with Clarice behind him. The room was silent, cold. Not just the air conditioning, but the way the guests sat, stiff and guarded. At the head of the table sat Victor, head of international operations. He didn't stand, didn't acknowledge her. Just stared like a question mark drawn in a sharp suit. "So you're the new language liaison," he said, tone clipped. "That's what I'm told," Clarice replied evenly. No bravado, no fear. She took the seat furthest from the center. She waited until Alexander nodded. Clarice folded her hands, took a breath, and began. In Arabic. "Good morning, everyone. Mr. Reeve thanks you for your time. He understands there's been frustration and hopes today we can find clarity." The lead Moroccan executive responded. His tone wasn't aggressive, but layered, formal, veiled. Clarice paused before translating, then gently added, "He's not just asking if we're prepared. He's asking if we've done our homework and whether we respect the time he's already invested." Alexander blinked. Victor shifted in his seat. The room changed, just a little. Shoulders softened. Eyes met. Clarice translated again, then added, "He also said it's rare to hear his language spoken with this level of care. I told him, when people feel unseen, language can be the light switch." The Moroccan executive placed a hand over his heart. It wasn't habit. It was gratitude. Victor didn't smirk. But he didn't speak either. "You're doing great," Alexander whispered. "I'm just translating." "No," he replied. "You're opening doors." The meeting went longer than planned, but not because of problems. Because for once, everyone wanted to stay in the room. That afternoon, Clarice returned to her usual floor. She didn't mention the meeting. Didn't bring it up. But late that evening, a quiet note was slid under her custodial closet door. PM. Conference room 17B. Board affairs. No sender, no signature, just time and place. The hallway to 17B was colder than usual, carpeted with wealth, lit with judgment. Inside the room sat a long table. One woman at the end, her posture regal, eyes like dice. A folder open in front of her. "Have a seat." Clarice sat. Not slowly, not fast, just steady. "I'm Eleanor. Craig. I've been with this company since before you were likely old enough to read. I've reviewed your file." She tapped it with 2 fingers. No college degree, no corporate certifications, no prior executive experience. Clarice didn't flinch. "That's correct. You were a janitor 3 weeks ago." "I was." Eleanor leaned back, cold smile. "Help me understand how someone with your background is now handling international affairs." Clarice didn't blink. "Because I speak 15 languages. I understand cultures. I've already corrected 2 vendor contracts, reopened stalled negotiations, and helped secure a verbal agreement with our Brazilian partners. Legal finalizes it next week." Eleanor's face didn't move, but her fingers stilled. "Do you believe a company should be run on instinct and charm?" "No, ma'am. I think it should be run on results." That landed. Clarice leaned forward, slightly. "I'm not here because someone did me a favor. I'm here because I did the work. Whether or not that fits your mold doesn't change the truth." Silence. "You're a gamble." "I'm used to that," Clarice said softly. "My whole life has been one." Eleanor blinked once. Not disbelief. Recognition, maybe. Then she closed the folder. No smile, no goodbye. Clarice stood, walked out. Outside, the air felt sharper. She crossed the street, sat on a bench in the shadow of the building. Looked up. Morrison Langley Tower gleamed against the sky. She used to wonder if anyone inside knew her. Now they did. She pulled out her phone, dialed a number from memory. "Hey, Ma. Everything okay?" "Yeah, just needed to hear your voice." They talked about groceries, the dog, a new movie they both wanted to see, no victory speech, no parade, just peace. The next morning, Alexander called her into his office. He didn't pace, didn't wait. "I've been thinking," he said, "about wasted talent, about people we pass by every day who have everything it takes, except the title." Clarice waited. "I want to create a role that doesn't exist yet. Cultural liaison, international affairs, someone who speaks the language, not just the words, but the people, someone who bridges." She stared at him. "You're serious?" "As serious as I've ever been. I don't have a degree. You have lived experience, relentless discipline, fluency in 15 languages. That's more than a diploma." Clarice shifted in her seat. "Why me?" "Because I watched you solve 3 problems in 3 languages before 9 a.m. And because I'm tired of watching people like you do twice the work for half the credit." She breathed in. "You know what people will say." "I don't care." She tilted her head. "I've never had a title or an office job." "You'll learn fast." "I don't have the wardrobe for this." "We'll issue a clothing stipend." Clarice chuckled, dry, skeptical. "You really thought of everything." "I'm trying." She looked down at her hands, then back at him. "This isn't charity." "No, this is overdue recognition." Clarice's eyes glistened, but she blinked, it away, then nodded. "All right, let's see what I can do." Alexander extended his hand. She took it. That handshake didn't just cross floors, it cracked ceilings. Monday morning, Clarice walked into her new office. It wasn't fancy, just a desk, a plant, a standard-issue laptop, but the nameplate read, "Clarice Benton Cultural Liaison, International Affairs." She stood there for a second, let the silence settle. Didn't feel like success, felt like responsibility. By 9 a.m., the whispers had started. She was scrubbing urinals last week. "I have a master's in international business." Clarice heard none of it, or rather didn't respond to it. She reviewed a translated report from Italy, found 2 errors in 5 minutes, fixed them, didn't announce it, didn't need to. That afternoon, a soft knock. Miss Benton?" An intern peeked in, nervous. "I'm Bao. I'm giving a short intro for the Singapore clients next week. I'm kind of terrified." Clarice smiled. "Good. That means you care." She sat him down, walked him through the phrases, wrote phonetics, gave him a sheet. "Don't memorize. Connect. How'd you learn all those languages?" "1 word at a time. Same way you will." Bao left smiling, a little taller. By lunch, 2 more employees stopped by, not to gossip but to ask. Clarice didn't act like a boss. She acted like a mirror. The next day, Victor dropped a thick folder on her desk. Didn't speak, didn't smile. She opened it, found 3 translation inconsistencies, a misused formal clause and a missing signature line in the Dubai document. Fixed it all in 10 minutes, didn't email, didn't announce. Just did the work. That afternoon, Clarice walked past her office and stopped. On the whiteboard outside, 3 words were written in neat marker. "We see you, no name, no flourish. Just truth." Clarice stared at it longer than she meant to, not because it shocked her, but because she hadn't realized how much she needed it. Later that week, as she passed front reception, a woman from HR nodded, then someone from marketing, then Bao, then even Victor. He didn't smile, but he didn't look away either. And for Clarice, that was enough. The email arrived without fanfare. Just a subject line, "Invitation to speak, National Logistics Leadership Summit, Cincinnati." No bold letters, no special font. Just her name, correctly spelled for once. Clarice read it twice. Not because she didn't understand, but because part of her didn't believe it. They'd read the reports. watched the shift in overseas partnerships. But it wasn't the metrics that caught their attention. It was the anomaly, the name that wasn't supposed to be there. Clarice Benton, cultural liaison, international affairs, former janitor, self-taught, fluent in 15 languages. So on the last Friday of the month, Clarice stepped onto a stage she never expected to see. No speechwriter, no stylist, no PR team. Her blazer was beige, her notes were handwritten, her hair simple, and her stance? Solid. She walked to the podium, adjusted the mic, looked out at a ballroom full of executives, strategists, CEOs. Then she began. I was never just a janitor. The room stilled. I was fluent. I was capable. I was ready. But no one ever looked long enough to see it. No theatrics. No cue for applause. Just truth. I'm not here to inspire you. I'm here to ask you something. She paused. The next time you pass someone without a title, ask yourself, what are you really missing? You could have heard a pen drop. Then, the room rose. Not in corporate rhythm, but all at once. A standing ovation, not for performance, but for discomfort. For truth that landed like a stone in still water. Afterward, people approached. Some shook her hand. Others just nodded with glassy eyes. Then a young man, barely 20, stepped forward. His voice shaky. My mom's a housekeeper. She speaks 5 languages. I used to be, embarrassed to say that. Clarice didn't hesitate. Don't ever be ashamed of brilliance, she said. The only shame is staying blind to it. He nodded, shoulders lighter. She walked down the hallway slowly. No fanfare, just presence. Back at Morrison Langley HQ, something changed. Not loudly, not with emails or policy memos. Quietly. The plaque outside the main training room, formerly Conference B, was gone. In its place, a brushed steel sign, the Benton room. Clarice saw it one afternoon. No one else around. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just looked at it, then whispered, "That's enough." Later that day, she returned to her desk. A small envelope waited for her. No sender, no handwriting she recognized. Inside, a folded piece of paper. One sentence. I used to think I'd be invisible forever, but today I stood a little taller because of you. Thank you. No name, no return address. Clarice held it, sat with it, then slipped it gently into the drawer beside her badge. Next, to the sticky notes she once used to memorize Japanese verbs under fluorescent lights. She didn't need applause. She didn't need credit. She needed truth. And now, she had it. She had walked into rooms she was never meant to enter, not by storming them, not by demanding space, but by showing up with quiet brilliance. Again and again. So if you're wondering whether it's possible to be seen without raising your voice, if you've ever been passed over because of where you started or what you wear, remember this. You don't need permission to matter. Brilliance doesn't ask for the spotlight. Sometimes, it carries a mop and changes everything. Maybe you've been overlooked. Maybe no one sees you. Not really. Maybe you've sat in rooms where your name was never spoken, or worked twice as hard just to be passed by. And maybe, just maybe, you've started to wonder if effort matters. If excellence matters when the world never seems to look twice. But what if I told you brilliance doesn't wear a uniform? What if genius was mopping floors at midnight, translating crisis in silence, waiting for someone to finally ask the right question? Because talent has no dress code, intelligence doesn't need permission, and brilliance, real brilliance, doesn't always knock. Sometimes it waits, patient, unapplauded, unseen, cut to a janitor scrubbing a hallway, a cafeteria worker memorizing, a customer's allergy without being asked, a delivery driver rerouting a package just in time to save a deal. No spotlight, no plaque, but make no mistake, they're there, brilliant, capable, ready. If that's you, if you've been invisible, undervalued, underestimated, keep showing up, because one day, the world will look your way. And when it does, don't shrink, bring. chairs, so others like you won't have to wait so long. Because brilliance belongs everywhere, even in rooms it was never designed to enter.